primary permanency planning goal. Again, so like as Michelle had mentioned earlier, each time we'll be talking about characteristics. So for this section, it'll be focusing on empathy and compassion, adaptability, and flexibility. So the reunification process. You want to take this one, Michelle? You want me to do it?
Yeah, if you could jump right in, because
So reunification process. So as we know, we're working with child welfare systems, and we'll get into this more specific about Connecticut as well after this. But we're looking at why are the kids entering care? It could be a range of reasons: parental abuse, neglect, abandonment, incapacity. Say like if the biological parents have medical issues for themselves and they're not able to care for their children. Where are they placed? Some kids are going to be referred and placed with relatives or non-related foster parents. That's where you guys come in and play, right? The reunification plan is the primary plan. So with FFT foster care, we are always looking at reunification as the primary plan. The goal is always to get our young people back home to their biological family when it's appropriate and when legally the courts are saying it's okay too. There are a lot of situations where maybe that's not the case. Maybe they're not able to return home to their parent, but all along the way, the team will consistently keep you posted and keep you up to date on what's going on with the young person's case and if the goal is changing at any point. I know there are some people who have also talked about, I would like to adopt, like maybe I'm fostering to adopt. And in those situations, it can happen where a young person comes into your home and say down the line, parental rights are terminated or something changes with their goal and you become their long-term resource. That's a possibility as well. But the primary is always reunification with the biological family and working with making sure we're getting the needs of the children and the parents addressed so that they can be returned home to them. The parent is responsible for achieving the goals. The caseworker assists, guides the process, and makes recommendations to the court. In this case, we partner with DCF. So the DCF social worker and supervisors are the ones that kind of take control over the court case and the direction of the case and how it's going to go. They're the ones that represent everything in court. But we as the FFT foster care team, we are providing the treatment and that support for case management as well. And because you are licensed by FCA, we are there to support you as well throughout the process. So at any point, like you guys had mentioned earlier, you're stuck, you're struggling with something, you can always call your clinician or your family support specialist, Michelle, myself, Sam, any of us on the team and say, hey, this is what's going on. What can I do next? So this is what I was just talking about, reunification. If everything's going well, you'll see visits increasing in frequency and duration. You'll see that ongoing caseworker support and the caseworkers are addressing concerns as they come up and having that communication as well. And then if things are not going so well, we'll start to discuss and look at what are the other permanency goals and what else is being considered for this young person. Anything else you wanted to add with that, Michelle, before I move to the next one?
no, in regards to in regards to reunification, as as a child, placed in your home, foster parents being supportive to that youth in regards to those visits. Encouraging them to attend those visits. And if there are any concerns or if the child is voicing any concerns in regarding visits or anything like that, communicating that with the team, communicating those concerns with the DCF worker as well. A lot of the times, the visits with biological family are court ordered. And so DCF has to show that there's reasonable efforts being made in order for these visits to occur. And if there is anything that that is stopping or putting roadblocks for these visits to occur, we need to know why and we need to understand why and see, is it something that we can get through? For an example, we currently have a youth that is placed in one of our foster homes, and that youth is expressing not wanting to visit their parent. And so the foster family documents it, lets the team know. The team also documents that information, but is also following up with the youth to kind of explore and see what is the reasoning behind why the youth doesn't want to visit their parent. And they in turn will inform the DCF because um because they're court ordered, any changes that occur, it has to be presented to the judge. The judge needs to be informed of these, you know, of these happenings. Does anyone have questions in regards to that?
I just got one question.
Mm-hmm.
So I was listening to what you said. So safe because you don't know what age the child is that you're gonna have, right? So what if you having like one of those situations?
Ooh. Crystal, you muted yourself.
No, so in regards to if it's a younger child, are you referring to that word to kind
What
of
if the
like
child is like of age? You know, it's not like a baby, but like of age where they're telling you that something is happening on the visit. They don't want to go where we talking about like kicking and screaming like I don't want to go. So is that like a call where like we call one of you guys or how that works?
so, and that is what I'm referring to, is letting the DCF worker know, letting the team know, so that way we can also follow up in regards to, you know, because we're going to explain as, it's not just a simple, oh, the child doesn't want to go on their visit. You know, we need to explain as to why, like, the child, their behaviors are escalated. It's unsafe to put the child in the car to bring them to that visit. We don't want to put anyone in that situation.
Absolutely. And it also
it-
allows, sorry, Michelle, I was just going to add that it also allows for opportunity for that to be discussed during the sessions with the clinician as well, about what that young person might be experiencing and what their apprehension might be towards going on the visit. Because it could be something else that's happening, or it could be also what we know our young people can do sometimes too, where they just weren't in the mood that day and that they just want to kind of dig their feet into the mud a little bit. But it really, we need to be able to justify it and explain what's going on and also make those clinical recommendations, because if it is something that's going on during the visits that's not safe or that the young person is feeling, we need to be able to share that as well with the DCF team on what's going on, so that it can also be shared legally with all the attorneys and with the judge on what's happening, so that at the next hearing, they can discuss what can change with the visitation. So there's something in the chat
okay.
box. Oh, okay, got it. Okay. Um, so while we were talking about all that, like we were saying earlier, plan A is reunification. That's the primary plan always, right? We are ultimately trying to get our young people stabilized, working on some of their behavioral problems that are going on, increasing their skill set and their coping skills so that they can be back home with their families. And their families also have to do the work as well and participate in services. But while that's always happening, we have to have a plan B, right? We don't want our kids lingering in foster care forever. So that's called concurrent planning. And that's where we always have a backup plan on the side of, should reunification not be able to take place, what's the backup plan? And the two should always be happening at the same time. Some teams are better than others with DCF, where they will work on both at the same time. And some you kind of gotta like nudge along the way to be like, hey, we need to really work on the plan B as well. So I always look at it as, I try to think of it visually because I'm a visual person too, as two trains going on the track and they're moving along, and they're kind of going always in the same direction, but you always have to have a backup plan. You always got to have, so in case something derails on train one, we have a backup plan so that young person doesn't linger in foster care forever. Michelle, anything else?
No, I mean, you know, with the youth that is here, we want, I'm sorry?
Permanency plan examples would be either what, adoption or moving with family or
So
things like that.
Yep. So the primary goals are usually reunification with their biological or kinship family, say if they came from they were residing, say, with an aunt or a grandparent. That's always a primary goal. But then there's also goals of adoption, goal of UPLA or APLA, depending. Both are used within Connecticut, and that's looking more at independent living that takes place as well.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
And there's, Nadia, I don't know if you mentioned this, there's also like, just like that transfer of guardianship, or it could be a relative that is taking on the responsibility of guardianship over the child, or it could be a non-relative, that it, is taking on the guardianship of the child.
Okay.
And so as this slide is saying, it's really the goals of concurrent planning is, again, considering other permanency options if reunification is not possible, minimizing the moves for the child, and respecting some of the existing relationships that are already in place. And then we're going to go into another video, creating a successful reunification.
The circumstances that led my sons coming into foster care were I was struggling for many years with drug addiction. I became homeless and made some really bad decisions along that way in reference to my kids' safety, and of course, along with my drug addiction, all the choices were really bad. And I eventually came in contact with child welfare. They removed my children, and my sister was taking care of them. She realized she didn't want to do it anymore and contacted Mr. Volk, who graciously welcomed my sons into his home.
Yes, I've known Kim and her family most of their life. I have a local grocery store, small-time grocery store, and so Kim and her family would come into the store, and I knew the boys, and I kind of knew somewhat of the situation, and just kind of, you know, way back, I'd done foster care, and I kind of knew where this was going to be going, but just kind of watched it unfold. The support I gave Kim and other families that had been in my home was just a non-judgmental attitude. I just wanted her to get her sobriety and get her life back together, and I encouraged her and said we could get the kids back with you as soon as we get some of these things straightened out, and just supported her in her sobriety and never judged. I'm a single foster parent, was a single foster parent, and it was also nice to have the families come over and spend time with the kids, and maybe even cook a meal for us, and not just her kids, but for our whole family. The other kids in my home liked Kim, and they liked when she came over to visit with us. And my only rule was that you just came over clean and sober, and that you kind of didn't really talk about the circumstances of why the kids were there, or blame the county, or blame, you know, other people for the situation, because the kids didn't really need to hear that, and Kim was very respectful of that.
It was very comfortable because Dennis never let me forget that I was the parent. And he was fair, again, as I said before. I respected the boundaries and rules that he put in place for my sons. Whether I agree with them or not was not the point. The fact of the matter was that that's where they were. But he never stopped letting me know that I was the mother. He included me in decisions educationally. He let me know when they had medical appointments. He actually went outside the guidelines of the county sometimes. And, you know, I remember Jamel would catch the bus around the corner from the treatment center I was at, just so I could see him every day and he could wave. So those are things that Dennis allowed to happen, just to make me feel secure and reassure me that he was really, really interested in reunifying my sons with me. I never got the feeling that he was trying to keep them from me ever. Building trust with Dennis wasn't hard at all because I trusted him way before my children were placed with him. So I already knew that they were in one of the best places they could be. Because my family at that time, weren't interested in taking place with my son. And, the beauty of this whole thing was my sons told me that they felt more welcome with Dennis than they did if they were with a family member. And that's huge when your kids aren't with you, when you know that they're safe. So it was the best place that they could be. And Dennis always, again, supported the relationship between me and my children. Always.
Well, this reunification with Kim was a little bit different because I had already known her, because I'd been in the community such a long time and I knew a lot of the families. But the other families where I didn't know the parents, for instance, one family, because I was single, because I was not Hispanic, because I was not, you know, we weren't what they would consider a family because it was a single parent running the household. They would criticize and they would say, this is not good for my son, this is not good for my daughter, because I had raised some girls too. And as they got to know me, as I built trust with them, then they knew that the placement for their child was the best. One of my, although I identify as a foster adopt family, I much prefer to do foster and get the kids back to their families. If that all fails, then I go for adoption and then try to keep the children and the family still together. So the biggest reality or thing for me is to reunify the children. The children want to be with the parents, and the parents want to be with the children. There are just some things that have happened in their life that kind of put them off balance and off place. And though the kids really want to be with their parents, and that's one of the goals that I try to, make, is to get them back together, whether it's through me adopting and them integrating into my family, or whether they go back to their families and then we all kind of party together, during the year.
Wow, Dennis. Dennis, when my children were coming to visit, he made sure that I could come in the store and get the snacks and the Zoom Zooms and the Wham Whams and the cereal, the milk, whatever I didn't have in the home. He would transport my sons to the transitional community I was living in to make sure that they got there for their visitation. He did a lot more than, unfortunately, a lot of foster parents do now. So he was there. He made sure they got where they were supposed to be. He made sure that we had what we needed. He was very, very supportive of that whole process. He did whatever he could to make my sons feel comfortable, and he did whatever he could to let me know that he was one of my biggest cheerleaders in making sure that I was going to reunify with my sons. But at the same time, he did say, if you don't reunify, they can stay here as long as they need to. As soon as he said that, I was like, no, I'm getting my boys back. They're coming home. Love you, but they're coming home.
I just could add to that. I think one of the things that Kim and I did very well, and what I did with most of my families, is that we continued to parent together. The kids knew that we would parent together. And her youngest son especially would, he would try to make Kim feel very guilty. And he would try to hold back his love or hold back his he would just kind of hold back from her until he got what he wanted from her. And I would talk to Kim and say, then don't let him come home this weekend. If he feels that way, then just say you stay at Dennis's this weekend. And sometimes she would take her older son. And then Jelani, the younger one, would feel like, okay, well, they're not playing with me, so I have to kind of get back to that situation. So Kim and I stayed on the same page. And when we had things that we disagreed with or had a thing about, it was never discussed in front of the kids.
Michelle, you muted. It's all good. I got you back.
Oh, goodness. Any thoughts in regards to the video in the way he was supporting the visitation? As he was able to support the kids and the mom during the visitation steps.
I think it showed that they had a united front so that there wasn't any like pulling from each side, and the kids kind of knew that they were getting support from both him and their biological mom, and there wasn't any like animosity or anything that they would have to choose a side.
Right.
I think he was a good example for, and it helps to hear that, how he handled it. So it makes me think of what I would do in his situation and take his example.
Right. And I know in the video, it mentioned that he allowed the visits to occur in his home, but he had also knew the family. Now, a child first coming into your home, right? You don't know, you may not know that by the biological parents. You don't know if there are any safety concerns. And so this is a conversation that we would have with you as to as far as what is your comfort level. But we will also have conversations with DCF to kind of have a conversation with the biological family, like what is the expectations, during these visits? And are there any safety concerns, especially if we're asking our foster parents to transport the child to a visit? Normally speaking, visits occur in a neutral setting and normally they're supervised. However, we also know that if the child, if the child and the biological parent is in that stage where they're being closer to be reunifying, it could be possible that those visits occur in in that biological home. And so we will start having those conversations like, are there any safety concerns? What is what is the plan? What is the protocol? Things like that. But we're gonna have that conversation with you beforehand. Same with if there are telephone calls. Sometimes it's arranged and we will let you know as to if if phone calls are going to occur, what is the schedule? What's the time frame? Because we also need to consult with your schedule. You also, families, are working. They may have to stay longer at work. So, what's the plan? What's the schedule? So that way everyone can make this happen. And if something does need to be changed or switched, we can start having that conversation to find whether it be a new time, a different day, things like that. So I don't think it mentioned it in the video. But also in order to keep that communication, that line of communication and that connection with their biological family, maybe is sending a text message, sending a picture, just letting them know, hey, this is what we did today. Or sending a picture, oh, this is them, at the community pool. I don't know, maybe at the beach, but because it also gives that parent a sense of like, oh, my child is having fun, my child is safe, and they're letting me know because it's a relief on their end because they don't know what they don't know the environment that their child is entering either. Their biological family's environment may not have been the best, but but knowing that their child is not with them and in another separate environment, that's it's a whole nother layer of concern because they're not there. Are there any
What?
questions?
Oh, yes. Hi, Michelle.
Hi.
So that was like an easy case, right? So in a sense of what if the parent, the biological parent, is displaying maybe after the first visit and the child is like, you know, Miss Tony this and Sam that, and and then they start displaying like jealousy, and they're not getting themselves together, and then they don't come to the appointments, the visitations. Like, what do you do in a sense of that, like trying to console the child?
So it's actually twofold a lot of times too. Like sometimes it could be the parent that is getting jealous because maybe you're providing things that they were not able to provide for their child. And so
Right.
they start to talk maybe a little negatively or because the jealousy starts to come through. And it could also be the young person who gets really torn because they have that
Mhm.
guilt. Their allegiance and loyalty lies with their biological family,
Yes.
but then they're
Mhm.
with you and they're like, but this is really nice. But no, my God, I should not be feeling how nice this is right now. And those are as it comes up and those issues arise, it's really important to have those open communication with your family support special and the clinician so that you can
Mhm.
talk through these things and as a family address it with the young person too, because it's important for them to hear also from everyone like you can have the best of both worlds, and it doesn't
Girl,
mean that
yes.
you have to feel guilty about this. But that's something that there's no, one word answer to answer that question because it's really
Mhm.
case by case and child specific on how they're handling the situation and if there are also safety concerns that may be present during those visits. And that's why
Mhm.
Michelle was also saying earlier, like for all visitation, like when we start off, it's always a neutral location. For the most part, a lot of visits start off in the DCF office being supervised,
Mhm.
and then they can gradually increase to maybe they're in a McDonald's or at the mall or at a like jumps or something like a trampoline park, depending on
Mhm.
what's going on with the case. Um, but they always start off in a neutral location because there are things like that that naturally can happen, especially so early on in the relationship. And so you
Mhm.
want to have a neutral location and a spot where like everyone can just kind of talk and see and observe what's happening and taking place.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So next we're going to move on to a case study for Chandra. And I'll read it out loud and then we'll discuss together as a group. So read the case study below and think about what you would say to Chandra to support her. Chandra is 15 years old and she's been in your home for 8 months. She was removed from her mother's care when her mother, Deandra, was arrested for stealing money from her employer and taken to jail. She used the money to buy drugs as she had a long-time drug habit. Her employer declined to press charges and hoped that she would get treatment for her drug use. Chandra was aware of her mother's drug use, but they had managed to barely get along before her mother was arrested. Deandra has a reunification plan to follow to have Chandra return to her care. The plan included a 90-day drug treatment facility in lieu of prison time, visitation with Chandra at the rehab facility, not using alcohol or drugs, getting a job after she completed the program, going to NA meetings, and regular visitation with Chandra at the county department after drug treatment. For the past 4 months, Deandra has missed 50% of the visits with Chandra. She lost the job she had, and she has not been attending regular NA meetings. Her social worker told Deandra that the judge will not extend her reunification plan if she does not start to meet the reunification requirements, and Chandra will not be returned to her. Chandra is angry at her mother for not following through, and every time she misses a visit, Chandra cries and says she does not understand why her mother doesn't love her. So after hearing all that, what are some things you would say to Chandra? How would you best support her?
I think I have a little bit of experience with the girls, with my oldest. They were in a situation where they were put in danger by the biological mother. She drinks and drove with the children in the car. Um, at the beginning, when they first moved with us, of course, they were scared, they were petrified, they were very traumatized. There were a lot of things going on. So, children don't open right away, right? From my experience, I gave them time and space. They were very stressed out, meaning they were torn between my house and the mom's house. And I never made them feel like they had to choose, or I never said, "Oh, would you like to live here?" It was never pressuring the kids. It was always like day by day. Okay, let's go to the park. Let's go have ice cream. Let's try. I try to distract them and to make them feel welcome, but in the same time, I never allowed anybody in my house to talk bad about the mom or what happened. We always tell the girls, um, it's going to be a process that mommy got to go through to in order to have custody and everything. Of course, that didn't happen. And as we moved along, what I realized is being honest with the children. I think for us, it was the best policy because the girls really appreciate that. We didn't hide anything from them. We went to a visit where she never showed up, she never called. And I was standing there and I had two girls that were asking me why did mommy didn't show up to see us. It's been almost a year. Honestly, I froze. I didn't know what to say. I wanted to cry, but I knew crying is going to make them sadder. So I said, I'm sure mommy loves you, and I'm sure she has something right now to do that had to be done. And I'm sure she's going to come and she's going to call, and, we're going to see her next time. Because what do you say in that moment? You're so torn. Like, your heart breaks for the kids, but also like it won't help being discouraging or just saying I don't know. For me, I figured the best way was just to be positive about it and just to say to the kids, it's okay. It's gonna be a next time, and it's gonna be fine, and we're gonna see her um, next, or we'll see what dates they're gonna give us, but the best policy for me was being honest and telling the girls the time we had court, telling them what happened at court. When she wasn't complying with what they were asking, we were honest, but in a way where, they were children, they were small. So you can't tell a 6-year-old, oh, mommy doesn't want to go to do the drug and alcohol test. We were just saying, oh, it's a little delayed. Mommy has to go through a process. It's a little complicated. It'll take time. And so it is hard, and especially that you just your your heart breaks for them. You want to be there for them, but in the same time, you're so torn because you're trying to, okay, I wanna help, I wanna be positive for them. I don't wanna be, causing more distress. It's really hard. Sometimes, like, you do. I remember I called the therapist that the girls had a whole lot, because I was like, I don't know what to do. My daughter was younger at the time, so I had no clue. One was 9, one was 4 when they came, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I don't have experience with this age group.
Yeah, it gets really tricky, and I love that you highlighted it has to be specific to what their age and their developmental needs, right? So sometimes with our youngest kids, less is more, and our teenagers can really read the BS sometimes a mile away, and so they know if we're not being upfront and transparent, and that can impact the relationship you have with the young person as well. So going back to Chandra, what are some examples of what we might say to Chandra to support her in this?
I think I will tell her, like, because you don't know why she didn't visit, but um I would say to her, like, I would explain to her about drug addiction. Like, it's not your mom that's making her do this. It's actually the drug use. It changes your personality, and it's an addiction. I mean, that's what I would say. I don't know if that's the right thing to do, but as a 15-year-old, I think that would be, to just be honest with her and soft at the same time,
Mhm.
because that's the truth.
Yes.
I think for me, I would kind of redirect Chandra and kind of focus on her positive, whatever positive she has going on in her life. Like, let her know we can't have control over others' behaviors. We can't control what others are doing. So we can focus on ourselves and kind of what we got going on and what we're doing that's positive, and kind of redirect her energy to like whatever positive thing she's doing in her life, focus on that. And, you know, all the other pieces will fall into place. And that's what I would focus on, because I don't want her to focus on the negative things around her, because that may affect her life in a negative way. But just reassuring her that, you know, mom is dealing with her own challenges, but you know, you have control over your life and you can have positive outcomes by doing, you know, positive things.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone.
I would
Anyone
do
else?
I would do something similar. I would assure her that she's a look at that picture. She's a gorgeous, beautiful young lady, and she has a whole life ahead of her. And her mom's drug addiction is what's causing the problem, you know, because the drugs just bring the worst out of people. And like the young lady said, Lorraine, I think, um, yeah, that she really should I would try to encourage her to focus on being the best Chandra she can be, and allow her mother to do what she needs to do to get back on track with her life. You know, I would tell her that her mom probably does love her, but she just doesn't know how to show it because of the drug, you know?
Yeah.
It's
Providing that reassurance, absolutely. So here are some other responses of that we can address it with, Chandra. I know this is hard for you and you're disappointed. Your mother has some struggles and she's not managing well right now, but that doesn't mean that she doesn't love you. And these are things that you guys were even talking about and saying. I'm here to talk with you about your feelings whenever you want to talk. Would you like to start writing in a journal so that you can put your feelings down on paper? Would you like to write a letter to your mom and tell her how you feel? You can keep the letter or send it to her, your choice. Or let's call your caseworker or therapist and make an appointment to talk with them about what the plan is for you and your mother. And you'll have your clinicians coming into your home every week. So that's always something that even before the clinician comes to the home, you can always let them know, like, hey, this is what was going on during the visit, or this is what came up at home during the weekend or something like that. And you can give them the heads up of like, it would probably be beneficial if we can discuss this during the session, just so that they know also before they're coming into the home what some of the things, some of the themes or things that are coming up, and you want to address them beforehand. So that's again going with working with the support team. You'll have a clinician and family support specialist coming to your home, you'll get to know them very well and get to know their numbers and how to reach them. And you'll have the on-call crisis support team as well. And it's always really important to be able to have these open conversations and be able to talk with them transparently about what's going on, what's going really well, and what are some barriers and some struggles that are happening so that we can best support you during those family sessions. They'll also, it's really important to also highlight you're responsible for, being part of this therapy process, attending school meetings, medical appointments, supporting the child in activities that normalize their stay in foster care. And so at any point, anything's coming up, you got to let us know and so that we can best support you. Michelle, anything else?
Just to highlight that, Nellie had mentioned the team that will be working with you in the home, but some other professionals that would also be part of your support team is the child's DCF social worker as well. And when a child that is in care will also have an attorney. And so they will look to meet with the child, especially if there's a court hearing scheduled, as they represent what the child wants. Depending on what the child states and whether or not it's in the child's best interest, they may have also a guardian ad litem that is assigned to them representing what's in their best interest. Because the youth can tell their attorney, oh, I want to go live with my brother. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. And the attorney at court needs to say, well, he wants to live with his brother. However, the brother may have, the brother may have a record, or maybe that brother lives overseas. So now there's a guardian ad litem. What's the best interest for the youth at this point in time? You know, especially if that brother can't come back and go through the steps in order for the youth to be placed with them. So it's just an example as to, you know, a situation where a child may have an attorney as well as a guardian, a guardian ad litem. But they're all part of the support team. It's going to be important to be able to communicate with all these individuals. And sometimes when there's so many people involved, it can become overwhelming, and you kind of sit back and say, oh, did I tell this person? Did I tell this person? Oh, wait, I still need to tell this person. You know, sometimes, you know, if you were, you know, if something needs to, you know, if something that you're reaching out and you're communicating it with the, you know, with the team that's working with you in the home, that team will send that information to other providers. So that way you just have to worry about reporting it to one person and not have to worry about following up with multiple individuals. Same thing if you were to reach out to me, and if it's something permanent, I will also inform the team. I will inform the DCF worker, again, because we know that you're trying to manage the youth in your home, and there's so many things happening, you know, all at the same time. You know, to help, you know, in order to support you, to have one less thing to worry about, we're gonna do it.
And so this was really just highlighting again what we talked about before, that push and pull that happens for our kids in foster care. We really want to be supportive of them as well, and their bond with their parent, and not also have them be in those situations where they feel like they're torn or they have to choose between you as their foster parent and their biological family. And it's always just being cognizant of how delicate that relationship is, and how delicate it is when a child is in foster care and they feel torn. They're not at home anymore. They're not with their biological family. And they might be in your home and feel really safe and secure and happy, but that creates some inner conflict for them too, because that's not what they're why how is it that I'm safe here with you and I'm happy here with you and you're providing my needs? Why can't I have that with my biological family? So we just want to be mindful of that so that we're supporting our young people.
Mhm. There may be situations where the child may express not wanting to return home. And again, the team will process with the child, you know, explore the reasoning behind that. You may have conversations with the youth as well as to, you know, they may, you know, with time, and they develop that bond and that trust with you, they may start sharing with you some of the things that, you know, that the reasons as to why they don't want, that they may not want to go back home, or they do, but at the same time they don't, you know, they go between that back and forth, that internal struggle. But again, being supportive to that youth, try to get to the root of what's behind their, you know, behind their thought process. But again, being supportive of them, and being open to hear, listen. If they're expressing anything of concern, again, reaching out to the team and reporting it as well. So
And
that
remembering
those
for our
steps
young,
can be taken.
yeah, and for our young people, they could come from a situation where they were being abused or neglected or not being provided all their needs, but their bond and loyalty to their parent is going to still be there and be strong. And for us as adults looking at it, we might struggle and be like, but why? Like they were doing X, Y, and Z, and all these other things were happening. And because you want more for them and you want to be able to provide for them what they haven't had. But for our kids, that's their normative experience. That was still home. So no matter what, that's still going to be their bond and their loyalty to their parents.
So thinking about a child you know and care about, and imagine a child is in foster care living in your home. How will you participate in reunification activities? Just thinking as to how you will participate in that. How would you support parents and other, potentially other family members? And how would you support the child potentially after they return home? It's a lot of, it's a lot of loaded questions, but if you can, share just your thoughts and one or all three questions.
Okay, I would just to answer the following question, how would you participate in reunification activities? Um, I guess I would try to get the kid ready and excited about spending time with the parent. Probably talk about some of the things that the parent promised to do with them, or actually just catching up and talking about how they feel and things like those.
Mhm.
Um, Child is doing well in school, share that information. Um, Share some fun stuff that the child's gotten involved with, or doing well on programs, things like those. Oh, that's supporting the child. Okay.
Mhm.
Uh,
Mhm.
um, let's see, support parents or other family members. Yeah, that's how I would support a parent, by getting the child excited about seeing them, um, having them, prepared things that they might want to show them about the progress they're making in school and things like those. Um, and to support the child after they return, I guess I have them, see if they want to talk about their day with the parent, what they did and so forth and how they felt about it. That's
Right,
all I can.
right, hearing their thoughts and validating what they're sharing, right?
Right. Yeah.
Mm, how would I participate in reunification activities? I think we talked about you know, supporting the youth with visits. So if I need to transport them to a visit or be at the visit and stay with them to help support and try to foster that relationship or with the parent, I think I would do that. How you support parents and other family members. I think just having an open door for communication so that they feel comfortable to talk with me if there's an issue or anything I can do to help them with the relationship with their child. And how will I support the child after they return home? I think, continue to communicate because they were a part of the family. To continue to communicate with that child even after they're home, and if possible, offer like being a respite for the bio families if they need a break or need some space or whatever the case may be. To have my home open to that.
Thank you. I got this thing up, like, not stay on my laptop. Oh,
Um, I was just gonna say that how to support the parents. I think I'll just try to help them out as much as possible. Like even if it's like bringing them to appointments, um, helping them out with seeing the kids financially, even maybe. Um, how I would support the kids after they went back home. Like I'll try to like now make my own little visitation visits to go, spend time with them, call them. Nowadays you can FaceTime too.
and so like having, I mean, we recognize that the kids have visits with biological family, and what you just kind of mentioned is going a little, like being able to, it sounds like, to conduct an additional visit outside of what is already scheduled. And in situations like that, it's something that we would include and have a conversation with DCF, so that way DCF is also aware that, um, that, that you're willing to do this, and making sure that it's okay and having it approved, so that way, um, they recognize that this is happening. Again, we want to be able to, set those boundaries and put those boundaries in place. being support, to that family, it doesn't have to necessarily mean like not only maybe conducting an additional visit, it could be sending that photo, sending that text message saying, oh, the child's, I don't know, has, that they're enrolled in a school play. These are the dates in case that the family member wants to be able to get tickets or whatever. Things like that. So that way we help that family feel involved. We help support that relationship between the youth and their family, but also having having you be part of that as well, because when that child is able to see, oh, my parent gets along with my foster parent and vice versa, no one's arguing, no one's being demeaning to the other. And that helps alleviate some of that stress that they may be feeling when they're thinking about, oh, I feel so comfortable here in my foster home, I want to go back home. So being able to see that open communication and both families to be able to communicate in regards to them, talking about their, the youth's accomplishments, that child's self-esteem also builds in a positive manner.
So the next part that we're going to go into is the Connecticut legal. So